When I saw the flames devouring my house, the only thing I thought about was running to my son. Adam was all I had left after his father passed away 3 years ago. I never imagined that night, standing in front of his door with a soaked suitcase and ashes in my hair, I would hear the words that would break my soul forever. "Mom, Bethany says you can't stay here." The world stopped. The rain kept falling on my shoulders, but I didn't feel it anymore. My son, the same one I nursed for entire nights when he had a fever, the one I comforted when he cried from nightmares, was closing the door on me when I needed him most. "What do you mean I can't stay, Adam? My house burned down completely. If you're watching this video, please subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're watching my story of revenge from. I want to know how far it has reached. I have nowhere to go." Bethany appeared behind him with that fake smile I knew so well. For years, she had pretended to tolerate me at family dinners, but now her mask had fallen. "Veronica, you have to understand. We have our own responsibilities. We can't take care of you now." Taking care of me as if I were a burden, an obstacle, as if the 35 years I dedicated to raising that man meant nothing. But let me tell you how I got there, because this story began long before that terrible night. 6 months ago, everything seemed to be in its place. Family Sundays were sacred in our routine. I'd arrive at 2 p.m. with my famous chocolate chip pecan pie, the same one Adam had adored since he was a little boy. The table was set with the plates Bethany had chosen for her wedding, white with small blue flowers that I never liked but learned to tolerate. Bethany always greeted me with a kiss on the cheek that felt like ice. "Hi, Veronica. So glad you made it." But her eyes said something else. Her eyes always told me I was an extra in that house, which had once been my Sunday refuge. Adam would hug me with his usual lukewarm affection, but lately something had changed. His hugs lasted less, his smiles seemed forced, and when we talked, Bethany always found an excuse to interrupt. "Honey, can you help me in the kitchen?" she'd say, just as I began to tell him about my week, or even worse. "Adam, your mom's talking a lot. I think she's a little confused lately." Confused. That word began to appear more and more in our conversations. Bethany used it like a subtle knife, cutting my dignity into small pieces that no one else seemed to notice. I should have realized when Bethany started making comments about my house. "Veronica, don't you think it's too big for you to be alone in? A woman your age could have an accident. Those stairs are dangerous." She'd say it with such false concern that it made me want to laugh. But Adam would nod as if her words were those of an experienced doctor. My house, my refuge, the place where I had raised my son, where I had mourned the death of my husband, where I had built my life for 40 years. Bethany saw it as an obstacle, as something that was getting in the way of her plans. The last Sunday before the fire, something strange happened. I arrived as usual, but Bethany had a visitor. A woman I didn't know was sitting in my usual chair, a middle-aged blonde with a smile that was too perfect. "Veronica, this is Jennifer, a real estate agent. I was just telling her about your situation, my situation." "What situation?" Jennifer extended her hand with a professional smile. "Bethany told me you're thinking of selling your house. What a smart decision. At your age, it's the most sensible thing to do." I looked at Bethany in disbelief. "I never said I wanted to sell my house." Bethany laughed with that nervous laugh she used when she was lying. "Oh, Veronica, don't you remember? Last week you were worried about the upkeep, about the bills. A lie. It was all a lie." But Adam was there nodding, as if my memory were an old rag that was no longer useful. I left their house that night with a knot in my stomach. As I drove back, I couldn't stop thinking about the way Bethany had talked about me as if I wasn't present, as if I were a child who needed others to make decisions for her. I got home and poured myself a cup of chamomile tea. I sat in my favorite armchair, the same one where I had nursed Adam, where I had read thousands of bedtime stories, where I had planned every birthday and every Christmas to make my family happy. The house smelled of the flowers from my garden that drifted in through the open window. Everything was in its place. The photographs of our family on the mantelpiece, the books I had collected for years, the blanket I had knitted the previous winter. My entire life was contained within those walls, and Bethany wanted me to sell it as if it were an old piece of furniture. That morning, I woke up to the smell of smoke. The smell of smoke was so strong it jolted me awake. At first, I thought it was my imagination, those strange dreams I sometimes have since I became a widow. But when I opened my eyes, reality hit me like a slap. There was an orange glow dancing on the walls of my bedroom. My heart hammered in my chest as I got out of bed. The hallway was filled with gray smoke that burned my eyes and throat. The flames were coming from downstairs, from the living room where a few hours ago I had been drinking my chamomile tea, thinking about Bethany's lies. I ran to my closet and took out the suitcase I had used for my honeymoon with my husband so many years ago. My hands trembled as I packed the essentials. Some photographs, important documents, the few clothes I could grab. The smoke became denser, more suffocating. I went down the stairs, clinging to the handrail, coughing with my eyes full of tears that I didn't know were from the smoke or from desperation. My living room, my kitchen, everything was turning to ashes. 40 years of memories disappearing in a matter of minutes. I got outside just as the firefighters arrived. I stood there, barefoot on the cold pavement, watching the flames devour my entire life. The neighbors approached with blankets and words of comfort, but I could only think of one thing. I needed to go to my son. Laura, my lifelong neighbor, lent me her car after the firefighters finished their work. "Veronica, are you sure you don't want me to go with you?" she asked, with that sweetness that only true friends have. "No thanks. Adam's going to be so worried when he finds out what happened. I need to be with him." How naive I was. I thought my son would welcome me with open arms, that Bethany would understand it was an emergency, that family unites in difficult times. But I was about to discover that my daughter-in-law had other plans. I arrived at their house around 10 p.m. The lights were on, and I could hear the TV from outside. I rang the doorbell with hope, carrying my suitcase soaked by the firefighter's hose. When Adam opened the door, his expression wasn't what I had expected. "Mom, what are you doing here so late?" "Son, my house burned down. I have nowhere to sleep." Bethany appeared immediately, as if she had been waiting behind the door. She was wearing that pink silk nightgown that I always thought was too elegant for being at home. Her hair was perfectly styled, as if she hadn't gotten ready for bed. It burned down. "How did that happen?" she asked. But something in her tone sounded strange. There was no genuine surprise. There was none of the shock you'd expect when someone tells you about such a tragedy. "I don't know. I woke up to the smell of smoke and the entire ground floor was on fire." Bethany and Adam exchanged a look that I couldn't interpret at the time. Now, thinking back, it was the look of two people who share a secret. "Well, I can stay here tonight, right? Tomorrow I'll look for a hotel while I figure out the insurance." It was then that Bethany said those words that broke my soul. "Veronica, you have to understand. We have our own responsibilities. We can't take care of you now." Adam said nothing. My son, the man who had grown up in my arms, remained silent while his wife closed the door in my face at the worst moment of my life. "But son, it's just for tonight. My house is completely gone." Mom, you know how she is. Bethany has been very stressed lately with work. Maybe you can call a friend or look for a hotel. A hotel. My own son was suggesting I go to a hotel instead of offering me their living room couch. Bethany smiled behind him, that satisfied smile of someone who has just won a battle. Besides, Veronica, I think this is a sign. It was about time you made some changes in your life. A woman your age shouldn't live alone in such a big house. A sign. As if the fire that had destroyed my home was a blessing in disguise, as if losing everything I had was exactly what I needed. I stood there in the rain that had started to fall, watching the door slowly close. I heard the sound of the lock, as if my own son was locking me out of his life. The rain soaked my clothes, my hair, my suitcase. But inside, something deeper was getting wet. My faith in family, my trust in unconditional love, my belief that blood will always be thicker than water. I walked to Laura's car and sat inside without turning it on. I needed to think. I needed to understand what had just happened. My house had burned down. That much was clear. But there was something else, something in the way Bethany had reacted, something in that look she had exchanged with Adam. It was then that I remembered the conversation from the previous Sunday. Bethany talking to the real estate agent about selling my house. Bethany saying I had expressed worries that I had never expressed. Bethany planning my future without consulting me. A terrible idea began to form in my mind. An idea so horrible that I tried to push it away, but it stayed there, growing like a poisonous seed. What if the fire hadn't been an accident? That night, I slept in Laura's car, parked in front of a hotel I couldn't afford. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the flames devouring my living room, but I also saw Bethany's face when I told her about the fire. There was no surprise in her eyes. There was something worse, satisfaction. At 6 a.m., Laura found me shivering from the cold. "Oh, Veronica, what are you doing here? I thought you were staying with Adam." I couldn't tell her the whole truth. It was too humiliating to admit that my own son had closed the door on me. Bethany is very stressed. I didn't want to be a burden. Laura took me to her house and made me coffee with milk, just like my mother used to do when I was a little girl and had nightmares. But this nightmare was real, and there was no way to wake up from it. "Stay here as long as you need," she told me as she handed me a clean towel. "My home is your home." But I knew I couldn't take advantage of her kindness. Laura was a widow like me. She lived on her pension and had enough problems of her own without having to carry mine too. After breakfast, I called the insurance company. The conversation was one blow after another. The agent explained with forced patience that I would need investigations, expert reports, documents that had probably burned in the fire. "Mrs. Veronica, these processes take time. It could be months before we see a single cent. Months. I didn't have months. I barely had enough savings to survive a few weeks, and that was if I was very careful with every dollar." That afternoon, I decided to go back to what was left of my house. I needed to search through the rubble to see if I had saved anything important. But when I arrived, I found a surprise that chilled me to the bone. Bethany was there. She was standing in front of the remains of my home, talking on the phone with someone. She was wearing jeans and a white blouse, as if it were a normal day, as if she wasn't walking on the ashes of my life. I hid behind Laura's car and tried to listen to her conversation. Yes, it burned down completely. No, she's fine, but obviously she can't keep living alone. Exactly. Now she's going to have to make more sensible decisions about her future. My heart began to pound so hard that I was afraid Bethany could hear it. She continued talking, and every word was like a nail in my coffin. The insurance is going to take months, and she has nowhere to live. She's going to have to sell the land quickly at any price. Yes, I can take care of those arrangements. After all, Adam is her only son. My breath hitched. Bethany was planning to sell my land. She was talking about my future as if I no longer had a voice or a vote in my own life. When she hung up the phone, she continued walking among the rubble with an expression I had never seen on her face before. It wasn't sadness or compassion. It was triumph. Bethany looked like someone who had just won the lottery. She walked over to what had been my garden and kicked some burned bricks. Then she took out her phone again and took several photographs. Why did she need photographs of my tragedy? I waited until she left before approaching my house. The smell of burned smoke was still strong, but there was something else. A chemical smell that I couldn't identify, something that didn't seem natural. I truly wonder if you were in my place. What would you do? Would you choose to be quiet to maintain peace? Or would you dare to face everything to reclaim your voice? I want to know your opinion because every story is like a candle that can light the way for someone else. I walked to where my kitchen used to be. The refrigerator was completely melted. The stove was a pile of twisted metal, but something caught my attention on the floor near where my breakfast table used to be. There was broken glass, but not from the windows. This glass was thicker, like from a bottle, and it had a greenish color that I recognized immediately. It was from a bottle of paint thinner, the liquid my husband used to clean brushes when he painted the house. But I didn't have paint thinner in my kitchen. I had never had chemicals like that inside my house. Someone had been in my house that night. Someone had left that bottle there, and that someone had caused the fire that destroyed my life. My hands trembled as I picked up one of the shards of glass. It was evidence that all of this had been planned. My house hadn't burned down by accident. Someone had intentionally burned it. But who and why? The pieces of the puzzle began to come together in my mind like a horror movie. Bethany asking about my house for months. Bethany saying it was too big for me. Bethany introducing me to the real estate agent without my permission. Bethany acting as if my memory loss were real when I had never had memory problems. And now Bethany was at my burned-out house making plans to sell my land. It had all been a plan to get me out of my house, to take away my independence, to force me to depend on them. And when that didn't work fast enough, they decided to speed up the process. They set my house on fire. My own son and his wife set my house on fire to force me to sell my land and be left with nothing. I sat in the rubble of what was once my home, and for the first time in 3 days, I cried. I cried for my house, for my memories, for the photographs that were lost forever. But above all, I cried for the greatest betrayal of my life. Adam, my only son, the boy who had grown up in my arms, had been a part of this. But as I sat there crying, something else began to grow inside of me. It wasn't just sadness or pain. It was something colder, more calculated. It was rage. And I discovered that rage can be the most powerful fuel in the world. Rage woke me up at 4 a.m. It wasn't the hot, desperate rage I had felt the day before. It was something cold, methodical that filled me with a clarity I hadn't had in years. I got up from Laura's couch without making a sound and sat in her kitchen with a cup of tea. I needed to think. I needed to plan. Bethany and Adam believed they had defeated me, that I was a helpless old woman with no resources or options. But they were wrong. I had something they didn't know I had, something I had kept as a secret for years, because my husband had always told me it was important to have hidden cards in life. Mr. Evans, I hadn't spoken to him in 5 years, but I knew he was still living in the same city. Mr. Evans had been my boss for 15 years at the accounting firm where I worked before I got married. But more than that, he had been my mentor, my friend, and maybe something more that never came to be because we were both honorable people. When my husband passed away, Mr. Evans had come to the funeral, given me his personal card, and said to me in that deep voice that always calmed me down, "Veronica, if you ever need anything at all, you call me. No matter how much time passes." I never called him. Pride wouldn't let me. But now, sitting in that borrowed kitchen at 4 a.m., thinking about the betrayal of my own family, pride no longer seemed so important. By 8 a.m., when Laura woke up, I already had my plan ready. "Laura, I need to ask you a very big favor. Whatever you need, Veronica, you know you can count on me. I want you to call Adam and tell him that I'm very unwell, that you found me crying all night, that you think I'm in shock from the fire." Laura looked at me with concern. "But are you okay? Because if you need to go to the doctor, I'm fine, better than I've been in years. But I need Bethany and Adam to believe that I'm broken, that I'm desperate. Can you do that for me?" My friend nodded, although I could see in her eyes that she didn't completely understand what I was asking her to do, but she trusted me as she had trusted me throughout all those years of neighborly friendship. While Laura made the call, I prepared for the most important conversation of my life. I searched in my purse for the piece of paper where I had written down Mr. Evans's number years ago. My fingers trembled as I dialed, but it wasn't from fear. It was from anticipation. The phone rang 3 times before he answered. "Hello?" His voice was exactly as I remembered it, deep, calm, with that slightly foreign accent he had never completely lost. "Mr. Evans, it's Veronica." There was a silence on the other end of the line, but it wasn't an uncomfortable silence. It was the silence of someone who is processing a pleasant surprise. "Veronica, after all these years, how are you?" "I've been better, Mr. Evans. I need to talk to you. It's urgent." "Of course. Where do you want to meet?" That simple question, without doubts or questioning, reminded me why Mr. Evans had been so important in my life. He never asked why or for what. If I needed something, he was there. We agreed to meet at a discreet coffee shop downtown. As I got ready, Laura came back from making the call with a strange expression on her face. "Veronica, I spoke to Adam. I told him you were very unwell, that you needed family support. And what did he say? He said that Bethany had spoken with a psychologist and that it was normal for older people to get like that after major traumas, that it was best to let you process alone for a few days. A psychologist. Bethany had already spoken with a psychologist about me. Without consulting me, without even truly knowing me, she had already diagnosed my mental state. Anything else? Yes. He said that if you needed anything urgently, to call them, but that for now it was better not to bother them because Bethany was very busy helping you with the insurance paperwork." Bethany, helping me with the insurance paperwork. Bethany, who yesterday had been standing in the rubble of my house talking about selling my land without my permission. Thank you, Laura. You're a true friend. The coffee shop was almost empty when I arrived. Mr. Evans was already there, sitting at a table in the back reading the newspaper. When he saw me come in, he immediately stood up. He was still the same elegant man I remembered, although now his hair was completely white and he had more wrinkles around his eyes. He hugged me as if 5 years hadn't passed, as if we were old friends who had seen each other the week before. "You look beautiful, Veronica. The years have treated you well." It was a lie, of course. After 3 days of sleeping on borrowed sofas and dealing with the betrayal of my family, I knew I looked terrible, but Mr. Evans had always been a gentleman. We sat down and ordered coffee. He waited patiently for me to start talking without pressuring me, giving me the time I needed to find the right words. "Mr. Evans, my house burned down 3 days ago. I'm so sorry. Are you okay? Do you have somewhere to stay? I'm fine physically, but there's something else. I don't think the fire was an accident." I told him everything. I told him about Bethany and her comments about my house. I told him about the real estate agent and the lies about my supposed mental confusion. I told him about the night of the fire and how my own son had closed the door on me. I told him about the shards of paint thinner bottle I had found in the rubble. Mr. Evans listened without interrupting, with that complete attention that few men know how to give. When I finished speaking, he remained silent for a long moment, processing everything I had told him. "Veronica, are you sure about what you're telling me?" "Completely." "Then we have to act fast, and we have to act intelligently. We have to." He hadn't said you have to act. He had said we have to. Mr. Evans was with me after not seeing me for 5 years, after a call out of the blue. Mr. Evans was willing to help me without asking questions. "What do you propose?" "First, we need evidence. Second, we need to protect you. And third, we need to secure your future so you never have to depend on people who don't value you again." Mr. Evans took out his phone and started making calls. In 20 minutes, he had contacted a private investigator, a lawyer specializing in fraud, and a forensic accountant. "Mr. Evans, all this must cost a lot of money." "I can't." "Veronica," he interrupted, taking my hand across the table. "5 years ago, when your husband passed away, I wanted to offer you help, but I knew you wouldn't accept it. Now you're giving me the opportunity to do what I've always wanted to do. Take care of you." His words touched my heart in a way I didn't expect. Mr. Evans didn't see me as a burden or as a responsibility. He saw me as the woman I had always been, capable and intelligent, but who needed an ally in an unequal battle. "There's one more thing, Veronica, something I need to tell you." "What?" "All these years, I never stopped thinking about you." Mr. Evans's words hung in the air between us like a confession that had been waiting decades to be spoken. "All these years, I never stopped thinking about you." It wasn't a desperate declaration or taking advantage of my vulnerability. It was the simple and honest truth of a man who had kept his feelings to himself out of respect. "Mr. Evans," I began, but he raised his hand gently. "You don't need to say anything now. You just need to know that you're not alone, that you're never going to be alone again if you don't want to be." That afternoon, Mr. Evans took me to his house. It wasn't an ostentatious mansion, but you could tell immediately that it was the home of a successful man. Everything was impeccably organized, from the books on the shelves to the plants that decorated every window. It was a space of peace so different from the emotional chaos I had been living in. "You have a room here for as long as you need," he told me as he showed me a bright room with a view of the garden. "And it's not charity, Veronica. It's friendship. It's what people who care about each other do for one another." That night, for the first time in days, I slept soundly, not because my problems had disappeared, but because I finally had a plan and I had someone to trust. The next day, our secret investigation began. The private investigator Mr. Evans had hired was named Robert, a serious man in his 50s who had worked for insurance companies for decades. "Mrs. Veronica, we're going to need you to tell me everything again, but this time I want you to give me specific details, dates, times, names of people present in each conversation. For 3 hours, Robert asked me questions that I never would have thought of. Who else knew that I lived alone? Did Bethany have keys to my house? Had they been in my house without me recently? Was Adam having financial problems? That last question made me think. Adam had never asked me for money directly, but Bethany had made strange comments in recent months. Things like, "I wish we could remodel the kitchen, but you know how things are." Or, "Adam works so much, but it never seems to be enough." Robert, I think they might have money problems. Bethany always wanted more than they had. That gives us motive. Now we need opportunity and method. Mr. Evans had been silent during the entire conversation, but now he spoke. What do we need to do to prove they caused the fire? We need the firefighters to do a more thorough investigation, and we need to watch Bethany and Adam to see what they do now that they think they've won. While Robert worked on the official investigation, Mr. Evans and I focused on the most delicate part of the plan, making Bethany and Adam believe that I was exactly where they wanted me to be. I asked Laura to call Adam again, tell him that I'm very depressed, that I can't stop crying, that I think I'm going to have to go to a retirement home because I don't have the resources to rent an apartment. Oh, Veronica, but why do you want me to tell them that? Because I need them to believe that I'm desperate. Trust me. The strategy worked better than I expected. That same afternoon, Adam called me. It had been days since he had spoken directly with me. "Mom, Laura told me you're very unwell. Bethany and I have been talking, and we think we can help you." "Really, son?" I put all the desperation I could fake into my voice. "I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't have money for an apartment. The insurance is going to take months." "Don't worry, Mom." Bethany found a solution. "There's a very nice place, like a residence for people your age. They have nurses, activities, everything is very organized. A retirement home." Bethany had found a retirement home for me. She wanted to lock me up in an institution while she kept my land. "But son, I don't want to go to a retirement home. I want to rebuild my house." "Mom, be realistic. At your age, you can't be living alone, and rebuilding is going to cost a fortune you don't have." "A fortune I don't have." As if Adam knew exactly what my finances were, as if Bethany and he had been investigating my bank accounts. "Bethany says she can help you with all the paperwork, sell the land, handle the insurance, find the perfect retirement home for you." Bethany managing my life, Bethany selling my land, Bethany choosing where I was going to spend the rest of my days. "I don't know, Adam. It's a lot to process. I understand, Mom, but think about it. Talk to Bethany tomorrow. She has a lot of ideas to help you." When I hung up the phone, Mr. Evans was sitting across from me with a look of disgust on his face. "Did you hear all that?" "Enough. Veronica, your son and his wife, not only burned your house down, they're planning to steal everything you have and lock you up so you can't do anything to stop them." That night, Mr. Evans and I sat in his garden with a bottle of wine. It had been years since I had felt so calm, so in control of my own life. "Mr. Evans, why are you really helping me?" He thought for a moment, looking at the stars that were barely visible in the city sky. "When you worked with me, I always admired your intelligence, your strength. But I also admired your kindness. You always saw the best in people. When you got married, I thought you had chosen the right man, someone who was going to value those qualities. My husband did value me, I know, but when he died, it hurt me to see you so alone. And now it hurts me to see how your own family is taking advantage of that kindness you've always had." Mr. Evans took my hand in the darkness of the garden. "Besides, Veronica, I'm 70 years old. I've built a successful company. I have more money than I'll ever be able to spend in the rest of my life. But I never got married. Do you know why? I shook my head, although I think I already knew the answer. Because I never found anyone who made me feel what you made me feel during those years we worked together. And now destiny is giving me a second chance. His words filled me with a warmth I hadn't felt in years, but they also filled me with something more powerful: determination. Bethany and Adam had made a fundamental mistake. They had assumed that I was a helpless woman with no resources, no options. They had planned my destruction based on the image of a poor and abandoned widow, but they were about to discover that they had messed with the wrong woman. The meeting with Bethany was scheduled for the next day at a coffee shop near where my house had been. I arrived early, not because I was anxious, but because I wanted to observe how Bethany behaved when she believed she had everything under control. I saw her arrive in her new car, a model that definitely cost more than Adam made at his job. She got out with a thick folder under her arm and that fake smile I already knew so well. She was wearing a black dress that she had probably bought to look serious and trustworthy, like a daughter concerned for her mother-in-law. "Veronica, you look better," she said as she sat down across from me. "Laura told me you had been very unwell." "I've had better days," I replied, putting the weariness she expected to hear in my voice. Bethany opened her folder with efficient movements, like an executive presenting a project. There were papers, photographs of my burned house, brochures for retirement residences, and something that chilled me to the bone: a legal document that seemed to be partially filled out. "I've been working hard to help you. First, I talked to 3 different residences. This is the one I liked the most." She showed me a colorful brochure with photos of smiling seniors, playing cards, doing gentle exercises. It's called Golden Sunset, and they have a comprehensive program: balanced meals, recreational activities, 24-hour medical care. A golden prison, that's what it was. "Bethany, it looks very institutional." "Oh no, it's very modern, very comfortable. And the best part is that you don't have to worry about anything. They take care of everything." They take care of everything, including, I assumed, not letting me leave when I wanted to. And how am I going to pay for something like that? It must be very expensive. Bethany smiled as if she had been waiting for that question. "That's where the second part of my plan comes in, Veronica. Your land is worth a lot of money, much more than you imagine." She took out some aerial photographs of my property and some documents that looked like real estate appraisals. "With the sale of the land, you can pay for the residence for the rest of your life, and there will even be money left over for other expenses. Did you find out how much it's worth?" "Yes. Jennifer, the real estate agent you met, did an appraisal. It's appraised at almost $2 million. $2 million. It was a lot of money, but I knew my land, located in a rapidly developing area, was probably worth twice that. Bethany, that seems very little for such a large piece of land in that location. Veronica, you have to be realistic. The land has the rubble from the house. It's going to need cleaning. There are problems with some documents. Jennifer says it's a fair price, considering the circumstances. The problems with the documents. How convenient that Bethany had already identified problems that could justify selling below the real price. And who is going to buy the land? Jennifer already has a client interested, a construction company that wants to develop a housing project in the area. Everything was perfectly orchestrated. Bethany had found the buyer, had set the price, had chosen my new home, and had even prepared the legal documents. "Bethany, this is a lot to process. Can I think about it for a few days?" "Of course, but don't take too long. Jennifer's client has other lands under consideration, and the residence also has a waiting list. Time pressure. the oldest tactic in the book to force hasty decisions. Bethany took out the legal document I had seen at the beginning. While you think about it, Adam and I prepared this to make things easier for you. It was a power of attorney, a document that would give Bethany legal control over all my financial decisions. It's just to help you with the paperwork, Veronica. You know how these bureaucratic things are. They're going to ask for 1,000 papers. You're going to have to go to a lot of offices. This way, Adam and I can take care of everything while you recover from the trauma. While I recover from the trauma. As if I were a mental invalid, incapable of handling my own affairs. I don't know, Bethany. I've never signed something like this. It's completely normal. Many people your age do it. It's for your own good. For my own good. The 4 most dangerous words that exist when said by someone who doesn't care about you. Let me take it with me to read it calmly. Sure. But remember that the notary is only available this week. After that, he's going on vacation for a month. More time pressure. When the meeting ended, Bethany gave me a hug that felt like the hug of a snake. Veronica, I know this is difficult, but you'll see that it's the best thing for you. You'll be much better cared for without worries. Without worries, because I wasn't going to have control over anything in my life. That afternoon at Mr. Evans's house, I showed him all the documents Bethany had given me. Mr. Evans reviewed them with the attention of someone who had handled corporate contracts for decades. Veronica, this is worse than we thought. What did you find? First, the land appraisal is completely manipulated. Your property is worth at least $4 million, not 2. Second, this residence they showed you costs exactly the amount they're going to give you for the land. You won't have any money left over. And the power of attorney is the most dangerous thing of all. With this document, Bethany can sell your land, manage your money, and even make medical decisions for you. Basically, you become her legal ward. Mr. Evans showed me the most problematic clauses of the document in small print and technical language. The power of attorney gave Bethany total control over my life. And if I refuse to sign, that's where the most sinister part of their plan comes in. Look at this. Mr. Evans showed me one of the brochures for the residence. In the fine print on the back, there was a section about residents with limited cognitive abilities. Bethany is preparing the ground to declare you mentally incompetent. If you refuse to sign, she'll probably say you're confused, that the trauma of the fire affected your judgment. She can do that with the help of the psychologist she already consulted and some witnesses who say you've been acting strange. Yes, she can request a mental competency evaluation. It was a perfect plan. If I cooperated, Bethany would get my money legally. If I resisted, she'd have me declared insane and get my money anyway. But Bethany had made a mistake. She had assumed I was the same naive woman she had known years ago. She didn't know that I now had resources, allies, and most importantly, that I knew exactly what she was doing. Mr. Evans, it's time for Bethany and Adam to find out who they're really messing with. What do you have in mind? I'm going to sign the power of attorney. Mr. Evans looked at me with alarm. Veronica, are you sure about what you're saying? Completely sure, but I'm going to sign it with some modifications that Bethany won't notice until it's too late. That night, Mr. Evans and his lawyer prepared a modified version of the power of attorney. On the outside, it looked exactly like the original document, but inside, there were clauses that automatically invalidated the power if fraud was proven, and others that allowed me to revoke it at any time without prior notice. Bethany believed she had me in checkmate, but she was about to discover that I also knew how to play chess. The day I signed the power of attorney, Bethany couldn't hide her satisfaction. She arrived at the notary's office with Adam, both dressed as if they were going to an important ceremony. My son was wearing the suit I had given him for his birthday the previous year, but he avoided looking me in the eyes. "Mom, you're doing the right thing," he said to me while we waited in the notary's office. "Bethany has worked very hard to organize everything." Bethany reviewed the documents one more time, making sure everything was in order. What she didn't know was that I had studied every line of the modified document all the night before. Mr. Evans' lawyer had done an impeccable job. On the outside, it was exactly the same paper that Bethany had prepared, but on the inside, it contained protections that she would never imagine. "Are you sure about this, Veronica?" the notary asked me, fulfilling his legal obligation to verify that I'd understood what I was signing. "Completely sure," I replied with the shaky voice of a defeated woman. "I can't handle these things alone anymore." Bethany smiled and placed her hand on Adam's shoulder. It was the gesture of a woman who had just won the lottery. I signed the document with a trembling hand, feigning the fragility they expected to see. When I finished, Bethany practically snatched the papers from my hands. "Don't worry about anything else, Veronica. Adam and I will take care of everything." That afternoon, while Bethany and Adam celebrated their victory, I was at Mr. Evans's house coordinating the next phase of our plan. Robert, the private investigator, had obtained crucial information. "Mrs. Veronica, I have important news." The firefighters completed the investigation of the fire and found clear evidence that it was caused deliberately. Traces of accelerant in multiple points of the house, burn patterns that indicate intentional use of flammable chemicals. It was the confirmation we needed. My house had been deliberately set on fire. Is there more? Yes. We reviewed the security cameras in the area. Your son and Bethany were at your house the night before the fire. After 11 p.m., my heart stopped. It was one thing to suspect, but it was a completely different thing to have proof. The camera recorded them perfectly. We see them entering your property with bags and leaving 2 hours later without the bags. Mr. Evans took my hand as Robert showed us the images on his computer. There they were, clear as day. My son and his wife entering my house like thieves in the night, carrying the materials they would use to destroy my home. This is enough to prosecute them, more than enough. But there's something else you need to know. Robert took other documents from his folder. I investigated Bethany and Adam's finances. They have debts of over $500,000. Credit cards, bank loans. They even owe money to private lenders. $500,000 was exactly the amount they planned to get after selling my land below its real value. And Bethany already started the process to sell this morning, 2 hours after signing the power of attorney. She was already at Jennifer's office preparing the sale. Bethany hadn't wasted any time. Now that she had legal control over my affairs, she had rushed to turn my tragedy into her financial salvation. But what Bethany didn't know was that I had also been busy that morning. While she was rushing to sell my land, I had gone to the bank with Mr. Evans and had transferred all my savings to a new account that Bethany didn't know about. While she was celebrating having legal control over my finances, I had moved all my money out of her reach, and most importantly, I had activated the secret clauses of the power of attorney. Mr. Evans' lawyer had contacted the authorities and had presented evidence of the fraud. In legal terms, the power of attorney was invalidated from the moment Bethany tried to use it to commit a crime. That night, Bethany called me, euphoric. "Veronica, I have wonderful news. The buyer accepted our offer. We can close the sale next week. So fast? Yes. They're very interested, and I already reserved your spot at Golden Sunset. You can move in next month." Next month. Bethany had my life completely planned out. By next month, I would be locked up in a residence while she enjoyed the money she had obtained by burning my house. Bethany, what if I change my mind? There was a silence on the other end of the line. Then Bethany spoke in a voice I had never heard from her before. Cold, calculating, threatening. Veronica, you already signed the power of attorney. You can't change your mind anymore. I make the decisions now, and I have decided that this is the best thing for you. And if I don't want to go to the residence, then we'll have to talk to the doctor about your mental state. Laura already told me that you've been very confused, saying strange things about the fire. Adam and I are worried about you. There was the threat I had been waiting for. If I didn't cooperate, Bethany would use my mental confusion to justify locking me up against my will. Bethany, are you threatening me? I'm not threatening you, Veronica. I'm protecting you from yourself. When I hung up the phone, Mr. Evans was looking at me with admiration. You just got her to confess everything over the phone. How? Robert has been recording all your calls since yesterday. We have Bethany admitting that she's going to use your supposed mental confusion to control you, admitting that you can no longer change your mind about decisions that affect your life. It was the last piece of the puzzle. Now we had evidence of arson, financial fraud, and evidence that Bethany planned to have me declared incompetent to maintain control over my life. When do we act? Mr. Evans smiled with that smile that reminded me why I had fallen in love with him decades ago. Tomorrow, Bethany and Adam are going to have the surprise of their lives. That night, I slept better than I had in weeks, not because my problems were over, but because I was finally going to get justice. Bethany and Adam had played with me as if I were a helpless old woman. They had burned my house. They had tried to steal my money. They had planned to lock me up for the rest of my life. But they had forgotten something fundamental. The woman they were trying to destroy had been successful long before she met them. She had built a life. She had worked. She had learned to fight. And now she was going to remind them who Veronica really was. The morning of the confrontation dawned with a clear sky, as if even the universe knew it was the day of justice. Bethany had summoned everyone to the notary's office to sign the sale of the land. She arrived early, as she always did when she was in a hurry to get something, accompanied by Adam and Jennifer, the real estate agent. I arrived a few minutes later, feigning the fragility of a defeated woman. I was wearing the black dress I had worn to my husband's funeral, my most comfortable shoes, and a small purse, as if I didn't have many important possessions. Bethany saw me and smiled with that satisfaction I already knew so well. Veronica, so glad you made it. Today is a very important day for your future. What Bethany didn't know was that Mr. Evans was parked outside with Robert, waiting for my signal. What she didn't know was that the lawyer had already presented all the evidence to the authorities. What she didn't know was that her perfect day was about to turn into her worst nightmare. Good morning, Bethany. Good morning, son. Adam greeted me with a kiss on the cheek that felt like a betrayal. For all those years, he had been my boy, my only son, the center of my world. But now, watching him prepare to rob me, I realized that he had long ago stopped being my son to become Bethany's accomplice. Jennifer spread all the documents on the notary's table, the sales contract, the transfer papers, the bank documents that specified that Bethany would receive the money as my legal representative. All right, Veronica, we just need you to sign here, here, and here, Jennifer told me, pointing to the lines marked with small X's. Are you sure the price is fair? I asked, feigning a final doubt. Bethany tensed slightly. Veronica, we already talked about this. Jennifer is a professional. She knows what she's doing. It's just that 2 million seems very little for such a large piece of land. Mom, Adam intervened with that condescending voice he had learned from Bethany. You have to trust us. We're looking out for your future. Looking out for my future. As if locking me up in a residence and stealing my inheritance was an act of filial love. I took the pen and pretended I was going to sign. At that moment, my phone rang. It was the signal I had agreed upon with Mr. Evans. Excuse me, it's important. It's from the hospital where my husband worked, something about his benefits. I answered the phone and spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. What did you say? That my land is appraised at 4 million, that someone submitted false documents? Bethany's face instantly went pale. Jennifer stopped smiling. Adam looked at me with confusion. What are they saying? Bethany tried to take the phone from me. Veronica, are you confused? I'm not confused, Bethany. For the first time in months, I see everything with perfect clarity. At that moment, Mr. Evans entered the office, accompanied by Robert and 2 police officers. Bethany recoiled as if she had seen a ghost. Who is this man? Bethany yelled. Jennifer, call security. I'm Mr. Evans, he said in that calm voice that had always soothed me. I'm Mrs. Veronica's lawyer, and I'm here to stop a fraud. Fraud? What are you talking about? Adam seemed genuinely confused. Mom, what's going on? Robert approached the table and placed a thick folder full of evidence on top of the sales documents. Mrs. Bethany, you are under arrest for arson, real estate fraud, and attempted swindling. That's ridiculous! Bethany screamed, but her voice sounded desperate. Veronica is senile. She doesn't know what she's saying. We have video of you and Mr. Adam entering Mrs. Veronica's property the night before the fire. Robert continued. We have forensic evidence of the accelerant you used, and we have recordings of your conversations where you admit to the fraud. Adam fell into a chair as if his legs couldn't hold him. Mom, I didn't know that, Bethany. You did know, Adam. I interrupted him with a voice I had never used with him. You were there when they burned my house. You were there when they closed the door in my face. You were there for every lie. Bethany told me it was the best thing for you, that you were losing your memory, that it was dangerous for you to live alone, and you believed her because it was convenient for you to believe her. Bethany tried to run to the door, but one of the police officers stopped her. As they put the handcuffs on her, she looked at me with a hatred I didn't know she was capable of feeling. This isn't going to end here. I'm going to prove that you're crazy. No one is going to believe a senile old woman. The problem, Bethany, is that no one is going to believe you anymore. Mr. Evans walked over to me and took my hand in front of everyone. It was the first time we had publicly shown that we had a relationship that went beyond the professional. Veronica, are you okay? I'm perfect. As they led Bethany away in handcuffs, Jennifer tried to explain to the police that she didn't know anything about the fraud, that she was just doing her job. Adam remained seated in the chair with his head in his hands, crying like a child. Mom, forgive me. I didn't know it would go this far. Adam, you burned my house. No, Bethany alone. You, my son, burned the house where I raised you. But Bethany said many things, but you made the decisions. I walked over to where he was sitting and knelt down to his height, as I had done so many times when he was a child and needed comforting. Son, for 35 years, I was your mother above all else. I put your well-being before my own, your happiness before my own. I worked. I sacrificed. I saved every dollar thinking about your future. I know, Mom. No, you don't. Because if you did, You would never have agreed to take away my house, my dignity, my freedom. Adam cried louder, but I no longer felt sorry for him. For weeks, I had been the one crying, feeling betrayed and abandoned. Now it was his turn to face the consequences of his decisions. Are you going to forgive me? The question I had been waiting for, the question all mothers fear they'll have to answer someday. Adam, forgiveness is something that is earned, not something that is given away. And you have a lot of work to do before you earn it, Mr. Evans helped me up, and we walked out of the office together. Laura was waiting for us outside. She had come to support me on what she knew would be a difficult day. How do you feel? She asked me. Free. For the first time in months, I feel completely free. That afternoon, Mr. Evans and I went to dinner at an elegant restaurant downtown. We toasted with a glass of wine to justice, to truth, and to new beginnings. What are you going to do now? He asked me. I'm going to rebuild my house, but this time I'm going to build it exactly the way I want it. And us? What's going to happen with us? I looked him in the eyes. At this man who had appeared in my life like a guardian angel when I needed him most. Mr. Evans, I'm 63 years old. I no longer have time for games or for doing things out of obligation. If we're going to be together, it's going to be because we truly want to build something beautiful. He smiled and took my hand across the table. Veronica, I've waited decades for this opportunity. I'm not going to waste it. A year later, I'm sitting in the garden of my new house, drinking chamomile tea while I watch the sunrise, paint the mountains with golden colors. The house I rebuilt looks nothing like the previous one. It's smaller, brighter, with large windows that let in all the light possible. Every room was designed with my comfort in mind, with my needs, with what I truly want for this stage of my life. Mr. Evans is still asleep. He moved in with me 6 months ago after a marriage proposal he made to me in this same garden. Among the hydrangea flowers I planted in honor of my husband, it wasn't a traditional marriage, but a union of two mature people who decided to share the time they have left with honesty and true affection. Bethany is serving an 8-year sentence for arson and fraud. Adam received 5 years, but with the possibility of parole for cooperating with the investigation. The first few months, I tried to visit him in jail, but each meeting ended with him blaming me for his situation, saying that if I had been more understanding, more flexible, none of this would have happened. The last time I saw him, 4 months ago, he said something that finally freed me from any guilt that might have remained. Mom, Bethany was right. You're selfish. You only think about yourself. That phrase hurt me for days, not because it was true, but because it confirmed something I already knew. My son had chosen to be his wife's accomplice to the very end. There was no real remorse. There was no understanding of the harm he had done to me. There was only self-pity and resentment. I decided not to visit him again. The sale of the land from my previous house was completed at the real price, $4,000 to $200,000. With that money, plus the insurance that finally paid out, and the investments that Mr. Evans helped me make, I have financial security for the rest of my life. But more important than the money is the peace of mind I have found. Laura comes to have lunch with me every Tuesday. We have developed a deeper friendship since what happened, based on the understanding that women our age have to take care of each other. She never asks me about Adam, and I appreciate it. There are wounds that need time to heal, and constantly talking about them only keeps them open. My doorbell rarely rings. I have few visitors, and I like that. But this morning, I hear the familiar sound, and from the window I see a car I don't recognize parked in my driveway. Mr. Evans wakes up with the noise and accompanies me to the door. On the other side of the glass is a young woman around 25 with brown hair and the green eyes of my family. She is holding a baby who can't be more than 6 months old. It's Lily, Adam's daughter, my granddaughter. I haven't seen her in 2 years. Bethany had always been very jealous of my relationship with her, and after the wedding, she had practically cut off all contact. During the trial, Lily didn't appear to support her father or Bethany. She just disappeared from our lives. "Grandma," she says when I open the door, and her voice sounds exactly like Adam's when he was a boy. "Veronica, can I come in? I want you to meet my son." Mr. Evans gently squeezes my hand, reminding me that I have the power to decide who enters my life and who doesn't. It's a lesson I've learned well this year. Why are you coming now? Because I needed time to process everything, to understand what happened, and because I want you to know that I never agreed with what they did. You knew what they were planning. Lily lowers her gaze. I knew Mom talked a lot about your house, about you being too old to live alone, but I never thought they would go that far. And why didn't you warn me? Because I was scared. Because it was easier to believe that Mom had good intentions. Her honesty touches me. She's not trying to completely justify herself. She's not blaming others for her silence. She's admitting that she was scared, that she made the easy decision. "Lily, I understand that you were scared, but your silence cost me my house, my security, my trust in my own family. I know, and I don't expect you to forgive me immediately, but I want to try to rebuild our relationship. If you'll let me." I look at the baby she's holding. He's beautiful, with that perfect skin that only newborns have, and a serene expression that reminds me of Adam when he was a baby. What's his name? Ryan. After my grandpa. After my dad. Lily named her son after my husband. His father is not in our lives. I decided to raise Ryan alone, a single mother just as I had been for so many years after being widowed, a young woman facing the world with a baby in her arms and no family support. "Where do you live?" "In a small apartment downtown. I work at an accounting office." Accounting. Just like I had worked, just like I had met Mr. Evans. Mr. Evans whispers in my ear, "The decision is yours, Veronica, but remember that grandchildren are not to blame for their parents' mistakes." He's right. Ryan isn't to blame for what Adam and Bethany did. And Lily, although she didn't defend me when she could have, she didn't actively participate in the betrayal. "You can come in, but I want you to understand something, Lily. Whatever you need to tell me, this house is my refuge. It's the place where I have found peace after everything I went through. If you're going to be a part of my life again, it has to be with complete honesty, no secrets, no divided loyalties. I promise it will be that way." Lily comes in with her baby, and Mr. Evans makes coffee for everyone. We sit in the living room, and for the first time in 2 years, I have my granddaughter in my home. Ryan wakes up and starts to cry, and I automatically extend my arms to hold him. It's incredible how the muscle memory of being a grandmother comes back immediately. Ryan calms down in my arms, and I feel that instant connection that only exists between grandmothers and grandchildren. "Grandma, can you tell me what really happened?" Dad and Bethany told me one version, but after the trial, I realized there were lies in everything. For the next hour, I tell her the whole truth. I tell her about Bethany's manipulations, about the arson, about the night they closed the door in my Phoebus. Lily cries when I tell her the hardest details, especially when I explain how I felt when I discovered that my own son had participated in destroying my life. Do you think Dad can change? I don't know, Lily, and it's no longer my responsibility to help him change. He has to make that decision for himself. And me, do you think I can earn your trust again? I look at this young woman who has my blood, who is raising my great-grandson alone, who had the courage to come find me after 2 years of silence. I think you've already started to earn it. You came here, you told me the truth, and you brought Ryan for me to meet him. That means more than you imagine. Lily comes to visit me every Sunday now. She brings Ryan, who gets bigger and more awake every week. Mr. Evans has developed a special relationship with him, and sometimes I find them in the garden. Mr. Evans reading him stories while Ryan looks at him with that absolute attention that only babies have. Last month, Lily asked me if she could spend Christmas with me. It was the first time in years that someone had asked me to share an important date out of a genuine desire to be with me, not out of family obligation. We had a beautiful Christmas. Mr. Evans cooked turkey. I prepared my famous chocolate chip pecan pie, and Lily brought gifts for everyone. Ryan had more fun with the gift boxes than with the toys, and we all laughed at his antics. At night, after Lily had left, Mr. Evans and I sat in the garden to watch the stars. "Are you happy?" he asked me. "I am happy," I replied without hesitation. But it's a different kind of happiness than the one I knew before. Different how? Before, my happiness depended on making others happy. Now my happiness depends on being at peace with myself. Mr. Evans kissed me on the forehead with that tenderness that reminds me every day why it's worth it to start over at 63. This morning, as I write in my journal about what this year of rebuilding has been like, I know that my story is not unique. There are many women my age who have been betrayed by families who see them as a burden, who have lost everything they built during decades of work and sacrifice. But I also know that there is hope, that it is never too late to reclaim your life, to set boundaries, to decide who deserves to be in your world and who doesn't. Bethany and Adam believed they had defeated me. They believed I was a weak woman with no resources, no options. But they were wrong. Not only did I survive their betrayal, but I found a better life on the other side of the pain. Now, when I watch the sunrise from my garden, I don't think about what I lost. I think about what I gained, my dignity, my freedom, and the understanding that I deserve true love at any stage of my life. Adam gets out of jail next year. I don't know if he'll try to contact me. If he does, I'm prepared for that conversation. But I am no longer the woman I was 2 years ago. I am stronger, wiser, and above all, I am a woman who finally learned to put herself first. Ryan babbles from his crib, and Mr. Evans is waking up. It's time to start another day in this life I built from the ashes of the old one, a life that is completely mine. The names and places in this story have been changed to protect the identities of those involved. We do not share this to judge, but in the hope that someone will pause and reflect on how many mothers are silently suffering within their own homes. I truly wonder, if you were in my place, what would you do? Would you choose silence to preserve peace, or would you dare to confront everything in order to reclaim your voice? I long to hear your thoughts, because every story is like a candle that can light the path for someone else. I firmly believe that God always blesses, and that courage leads us toward brighter days. As we close, I leave you with 2 of the channel's most beloved stories. I am certain they will surprise and inspire you. Thank you for staying with me until this moment.